Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 40. Very potentiated number, day 40 of Humanity Rising. Every day since the 22nd of May, between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time, we've created what is essentially an open space so that people from all over the world can come together to share their experiences of the pandemic, look at solutions and new mindsets and strategies that are appropriate as we look beyond the pandemic to the world we want to create in the future. And basically to take counsel together to ensure that people of goodwill from around the world can actually make a difference in the shape of the post-pandemic world. Scientists the world over continue to sound the alarm that all our major indicators, at the center of which is runaway climate change, are getting worse, not better, and that we have a diminishing time frame to turn things around. So Humanity Rising has been initiated by a coalition of now over 400 different organizations and partners. We're being live streamed on Awake TV, on IDNCO, on Unify, on Sign, on a number of our partners to 10 to 15,000 people. We want to invite you to live stream your event. If anybody out there has a Facebook page, any organization, we would love to be able to live stream Humanity Rising every day. If you're interested, let me know, or let Matt know, or Peter Mary, anyone, your convener. They all know how to get in touch with us. Because what we want to do over the next several months, now day 40, we have indicated to ourselves, and I think to the larger community, that Humanity Rising is important. It's building momentum, and it's basically now in over 100 countries. There are local groups that are popping up. Humanity Rising Holland is now taking shape. And so we are very, very pleased with how things are progressing. Over this next week, we're focusing on a major programmatic area, which we're calling New Mindsets for a New World. And any new mindset for a new world has to encompass art. So our entire program today is about different ways that artists are contributing to global thinking and the creation of new forms of aesthetic values. I want to introduce Etienne Verbist, who has been deeply immersed in the art world for many, many years, and very generously offered to convene this panel and possibly several other panels as we begin to bring in artists from all over the world to join in this very important deliberation in the midst of an unprecedented pandemic about how we can shape a better future. As usual, if you want to make comments or questions, do so in the chat box or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring everything. The presenters will be interacting with you. We'll try to get your questions in on the discussion. And you can continue the discussion on our Ubiverse, where you've probably uploaded your blogs and various other things after the program is over. And you can, of course, access the recording on our YouTube channel at Ubiquity University. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to day 40, and I turn it over to Etienne. You're muted, Etienne.
unmute myself. You hear me? You see me?
Yeah, good.
Okay. This is my assistant, my cat. So thank you, Jim. We're really happy with this, with your work, and I follow you for years. And I welcome all of us for the first keynotes related to the new art economy. We titled it New Art for Humanity Rising. And we all face the same problem. And I found out that the crisis has many, many facets, socio-economic and sociological. And I noticed, and I said always again, that artists and collectors are often frontrunners in testing new technologies as an opportunity for future challenges. And I write a lot about the new economy, the new art economy, and the new technology. And I see how people react now and how we can create in a destructive or disruptive way, but also in a human way. I'm used to talk about the technical point of change, like crowdsourcing or blockchain or artificial intelligence or 3D printing, name it robotics, algorithms, or Internet of Things. I mean, they're all changing the world. When I talk to people from Deloitte or PricewaterhouseCoopers, they say, that's the key. We have platforms. And all this technology will speed up the change process. But we have one major question. What's the human part of it? And today we have 5 keynote speakers, and they will raise about topics which are rather more like philosophical, related to art or nature or crowdsourcing and communities. So we don't have a technical discussions today. Jim, because I had some problems with my computer. Who is the first speaker today? Is it Marianne? Jim? Hello?
Evgenia.
Evgenia, okay. Hello, Portugal. Hello, Evgenia. Great that I can introduce a poet. And Evgenia is a sound and visual artist, and she's also an art activist. She's an entrepreneur from Russia to Portugal, and she will explain us her art related to forest and communities. Evgenia, it's all yours. Just take it over.
Thank you so much, Etienne, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, Jim, for inviting. And it's really good to be here. It's really good to be connected and to be sharing my work, my vision, and hopefully opening a floor for a collaboration. So first of all, before starting talking about the project that I'm involved in, I would like to present myself. I'm an artist and I'm a poet. That's what Etienne said, that's true. And with all that gratitude, I would like to start by reading a poem from the Cycle of Eternal Forest project, the poem that I wrote originally in 2018. The poem is already written in 2 languages, but I'll read it in English. It's the most international at the moment that I think most of us connect with. So here it goes. Single tree where sacred forest, no more. Barren vein, once a myriad strata. Rare voice, a relic of obsolete song. Idle seeds, race, perpetual cycle. Roots once severed, grow forever apart. Vacant dream amidst human desert. Instant past of the future. All we can plant. Every word spoken here is present. Live in memory, die cry for emergence. So this is the poem that I wrote in 2018 when I started the project that is called Eternal Forest. And I'm going to share with you the vision for how it developed and where it's going. So I'm going to share my screen. I prepared a visual presentation for all of us. Here we go. So I believe personally that we live in critical time, and each of us needs to stop and think how we can contribute to the well-being of this planet and of human beings, and to the biodiversity and continuity of life on this planet. My question is, what do we want to create together, and what do we want to be remembered for as humanity? And most importantly, how can we collaborate to be able? A project that is called Eternal Forest is an offering of the communities, an offering of old growth forest to the future generations that come after us. This ongoing project has a vision to emerge 1,000 eternal forest sanctuaries and to protect them for 1,000 years. My method of working, my method of doing this is to connect art and ecology and to collaborate with communities around the world to establish these 1,000 eternal forest sanctuaries. And my question as an artist is, how can we shift our extractive and highly productive relationship with nature towards a different kind of relationship, and how can we deepen that connection? But I'm going to take you a little bit back. 3 years ago, we moved to Portugal from the UK with my husband. And as new people in the country, we were just traveling across the whole Portugal, connecting with people and communities around Portugal. And what we saw in 2017 was a really strange landscape. It was scarred by recent fires that rolled over Portugal. And what I realized is that the ecological situation here is quite drastic. But it's not only here that we encounter a high level of deforestation, loss of biodiversity and healthy ecosystems. It's really happening all across the globe. So this problem is really global. So this project was really born out of my motivation to try to understand what is it really in our psyche that makes us do what we do and drives us towards destruction, really. So I basically worked throughout 2018 and 19 across Portugal, connecting with local communities, with reforestation initiatives, working with people, interviewing people, and asking them similar questions, trying to uncover their intrinsic relationship with forests and nature. Based on these conversations, I was creating my pieces, poetry pieces, visual works in various languages. I speak English, Russian, Portuguese, and I also translate my work in other languages. I made a film, which is a series of interviews with local people who live in close proximity to the places which bear the scars of fires because of the monocultures of eucalyptus plantations that basically took over this particular country. And when I made my film, I started realizing that there is a lot of questions around economic value of the forest, and everybody was really asking me about what is my solution and how people can shift from this monoculture to biodiverse forest, still having some kind of profits from the forest. And I felt that it really did not sit with me quite right. I wanted to go deeper and explore further. So I decided that I would like to take my time, and instead of moving towards immediately coming up with solutions, just take my time and go deeper. So I applied to another art residency in Portugal as well. And my proposal was very simple. I said, what if we created an eternal forest sanctuary? What if we said that this particular piece of forest is protected, is sacred to all of us? And what if we did it through an integration of community and an art project? And so this project was developed by the Commission of Bienal de Coruja, a small local biennale in the center of Portugal in 2019. I did Eternal Forest Experience. It was a very slow 2-hour silent performance. People were silent, and I was giving them some clues through poetry and through artistic intervention. And I took people really on a journey through the forest. But I was trying at this point to find a key approach to how we go to the forest, why we go there, and how do we connect, how do we listen. And for me, this approach became really an experience of deep listening, an experience of trying to collaborate and co-create with nature. This is a Eternal Forest manifesto which emerged last year. It's written as a poetry piece in English, Portuguese, now translated in French. This is the central piece of Eternal Forest Sanctuary, which is read with people in the forests when Eternal Forest Sanctuaries are initiated. It exists in the poetry form, in a visual form. This is the book, which is a proposal for the community of Korush to create an Eternal Forest Sanctuary, which has a full proposal, the vision, the poetry pieces, and the manifesto. And this is a map which probably is 10-kilometer walk, poetry walk, which now will be integrated into one of the forests in Portugal. So what is this sanctuary? What is this place? And why do I feel we must have those very special protected places, not just for conservation, but places that are really sacred and that are really artistic? So for me, there are many ways to go, million ways of going to the forest. And this is just one way. But I believe that we really lost our sacred link with forests. And I feel that it is high time to reintegrate it into our psyche and into our life. And I feel that we must have places that have a space for our contemplation, for regeneration, for supporting deep learning, deep listening, and really letting nature be in its wild, I would say, state, which we have those places, but very few. And I believe that through art, we can achieve quite a lot. When a piece of a forest is an artwork, I think we might have a different appreciation of it. We might have a different approach. Our view of it is becoming completely different. Those places, in my case, thousands of them will be created through collaboration circles with reforestation initiatives, with other artists, with communities, with ecology experts, with biodiversity experts. I think it requires all of the different skills to create those spaces that will serve nature, but also for humans, for generations to come, for the 7 generations, but also hopefully beyond that time. And I'm working a lot with long time scales, with deep time, with the idea of time beyond one human lifetime, because I think it's a great time for us to challenge that focus of short-term thinking. Right now, I'm in the process of creating a global team for connecting Eternal Forest to other countries and to create an international movement. I'm setting up a series of collaborations with organizations, NGOs, reforestation initiatives, forest parks, botanic gardens, other artists and communities. And I'm also looking for partnerships that would be interested in participating in this project in the long run. And this is, I just kind of made a little list of how you could be involved in this project already today. So of course, I'm always happy to come and talk about the project to help spread the vision. If you know of a place, of a museum, of an art foundation, of a gallery that would like to host it, of a community center, I'm always happy to share this work. But also I'm of course looking for longer term partners who would like to help co-create 1,000 Eternal Forest Sanctuaries around the world. And if you feel like you like the idea, you like the project, even that we don't have a formal organization, you can already support the project today through becoming a patron, through Patreon, PayPal, and there are other means. And these are various links you could also connect. There is Facebook group, active Facebook group Eternal Forest. You could connect with that. And I'm always happy to have a personal conversation on Zoom. You can always write to me. So all the information is always also on the Ubiquity site, so you could have a look. There is a blog that I've written, you could find out more. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of presentations. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. That's it. Thank you.
Evgenia,
Muito
can I
obrigada.
ask a question? Thank you,
Of course.
Evgenia. Can I ask a question? Because for me, it's quite abstract. It's like, why do you name it 1,000 Eternal Forest Sanctuaries for 1,000 years? I mean, I've perhaps 10 years to live now. Is it only a symbolic dream, or does it have more practical implications? And if so,
for this question,
hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, of course.
Is the question clear?
Thank you. Yes, the question is clear. For me, it's both symbolic and it's practical. I believe that we must have visions that seem to be impossible in order to achieve more. So for me, 1,000 sanctuaries sounds like it's basically a bigger vision, and I'm hoping that people will really catch up on that. And once we have several working models, then people can take one of the models and say, okay, that's going to work for me, for my community, for my organization, and copy it and implement it where they are. 1,000 years for me, it's really important, because 1,000 years, it's really what takes a proper stable ecosystem to get established. The real forest, it takes a long time to emerge. And of course, old growth forests are very few in the world, and many of us have never experienced such places. So I'm hoping that with that vision, we'll be able to actually create old growth forests that will become old growth for those who are going to see them when we are not here anymore. So for me, this vision has both this kind of bigger dream, because I think big numbers also attract a lot of people,
Yeah,
but also, of course, it's very practical.
Okay, I'm sure we will find a way to realize it. Okay, we'll take it from there. Other questions to Evgenia? Or will we first go on with the next speaker?
Yes, I'm ready, Etienne.
Marianne, hi. Hi all. Well, I've met Marianne several times, but more in an environment of finance and technology. And I was amazed that, and it's like my meaning changed completely about art, thanks to COVID. And Marianne, I mean, she's really active in governance, and she's executive chair of Art and Education Standard Consortium, and she's chair at the Cornelius Arts Foundation in France. She's a very nice lady, very good writer. And she will explain us that real innovations that the world post-COVID needs to bring are less technology-driven. And I'm a fan, but it's more like a shift in the way humans organize themselves. And we had to. Huh? So we have to more to collaborate, and we have to use distributive governance, and technologies will help us with blockchain, right? So Marianne, she can explain it better than me. So it's all yours. Take it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Etienne. Thank you very much for Ubiquity to organize these elaborate engagements and series of engagements. I think that what we are going to discuss today is only a small fraction of the bigger picture about how we can have a better future and be actively engaged in that shaping. But I would like to bring here the perspective from the arts. I have a business background, so that explains a little bit of the introduction lines by Etienne. But I have, for the last 10 years, oriented my activities full-time around the arts as my pivot. So whether it's for philanthropic activities, creative activities, I'm a poet as well, or business considerations, art is always at the center of my activities. So today, I would like to talk about agency. And I'm going to share the screen. That is a lively screen, very colorful. Starting in black and white, and I thought that we should inject some colors in life. When we brainstorm the topic with Etienne, of course, technology is really much at the forefront of many transformations. But my view, which I will present here, is to say that before technology, we need to place governance. And governance being the way human beings are organized for various projects and environments. So I'm going to start with, sorry, just moving to the next slide. I'm going to start with a small quote that is quite famous by Andy Warhol, which says that they always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. And I find that it's a very inviting proposition when it comes to the period of fundamental mutations that we have to initiate if we don't want to be following them. So why governance? And governance, as I mentioned earlier on, it's the way we organize ourselves. It's not necessarily a book, or it's not necessarily a document, it's not an organigram, it's the way human beings decide to organize themselves at a family level, at a village level, whether it's a project in a corporation, or for instance, at a national level. And governance right now is perceived as quite challenged by a number of disillusions. If you look at the way people disengage from voting, for instance, it's quite revealing of the lack of trust or the lack of confidence that people place on certain political systems. So we touch upon here about notion of responsibility in terms of recognition of your individual contributions. We looked at the vitality of institutions and the ability for these institutions to engage and make citizens to participate. And so what is governance? And so I'm going to look at two examples, tangible examples, which are emerging from the art sector. The art sector is always seen as an experimental ground, not just in the matter of producing objects or artworks, but also in the way people want to be organized. And I felt that it would be an interesting slice of what is moving forward to talk about two projects. The first one is called Crowdsourcing, and the second one is the AIS initiative, which I'm chairing currently. So, looking at Crowdsourcing. So what is Crowdsourcing? Crowdsourcing is an initiative which was introduced last year that is looking at creating new ways for local communities to engage with the act of commissioning public art. So the space that is shared by everyone, the commons as we call it. And how do we introduce new objects in the daily life of neighborhoods in a way which is not imposed on them, but owned by them through a new process, which is about what we call distributed voting or distributed governance. So how does it work? Well, you have a web-based voting system, which is an app, which is enabling the local communities to engage with a journey, which I will describe a bit later as a prototype, and also enable people to be weighted in terms of their decision points based on their participation. So it needs to be as well engaging and fun, and needs to be simple to grasp. And these are the prerequisites for the success of the experience. So how does it work? You have we have an experience which was commissioned by Furtherfield last year. The Furtherfield is an art and social impact and technology organization which has been active for the last 20 years in London. And they offered a parkour feature fair in the park, inviting the local communities to engage with the various stand and booths that were present. And then they asked them to vote for the 3 best pit stops that they experienced during the day or the weekend. And this was collated then through the app. And then everyone could see actively where they had been, what was retaining or collecting the most votes in favor of a particular device or feature. So this was an interesting experience because it was physical, but also it was using the ability for the app to engage across time, across space, and it was accessible because it was free. And the outcome was something that was deliberately designed to be endorsed and appropriated by the local communities. The second example I would like to go through is another challenge, which is a bit more business orientated. The art identification standard aims to build an industry-wide identification standard for artwork. So what it is, it means that every artwork will have its own identifier. The initiatives so far have been quite segmented, so fragmented across the industry and the art sector. So the vision is to have a consortium, and here we have a selection of them. We have about 30 so far, who come from various horizons. They are art organizations, not-for-profit. You have very good businesses which are established for decades. You have artists, you have digital companies, a number of players that are starting to represent a good slice of the art ecosystem. And the objective there is to arrive at a consensus. Once you will have a very diverse personal or corporate or business or organizational objectives, how do you build a common platform, a common standard that is going to meet everyone's need without competing with their current proposals or business models? And that's the key challenge whenever you introduce something. So far, any initiative have been private and they have failed. And I'm not even talking about here about the technology underpinning the objective, but I'm talking about the principle of governance that will dictate or secure the success of the vision. So when we started last year, the starting points were very much not technological solution for introducing that standard, which actually would be based on blockchain as a decentralized ledger, but how we are going to organize ourselves. And we come up with a number of 5 key values, which are values of engagement that are underpinning the way we regulate, the way we interact within each other. So the first thing is transparency, transparency of decision process. And this is also an attribute of the blockchain. I mean, some blockchains are open, some of them are closed. But what we want is to have a process that is very transparent, that will also be reflected in the technical solution that we have for registering and creating these various IDs. The second parameter is diversity of views, and that's a prerequisite if you want to have something that is adequate for the complexity and the multi-layered and fragmented nature of the art ecosystem. We have consensus building, so we have mechanisms to ensure that we are getting a solution that is first opening up, like the funnel, and then closing down so that we can progress. Importantly as well, going back. We are planning to introduce at a later stage what we call a DAO, so the decentralized organization that is enabled through a blockchain. So this system is very much something that is going to be facilitated by blockchain. So you have an end product which is blockchain based, but also you have a mechanism to regulate the organization, the initiative, the consortium, which will be facilitated in terms of decision process for voting, in terms of recognition of the contribution of each member, whether you contribute through your expertise, your networks, cash, and so forth. And that is something that is in the process of emerging in a number of other parts of the art world. The I.O.T, I will mention 1 or 2 other initiatives. So if I summarize the 2 examples about how we want to, how these experiments are working, they have some commonalities. The notion of transparency, the notion of decentralization, democracy underpinning, the consensus building system that recognize the contributions, the proof of presence, for instance, but also voting protocols and quadratic voting and blockchain, all these aspects which are technologically driven, but they are enablers rather than the reason why these experiments are being implemented. And then, of course, you need to have fun. And if you don't have fun in life, you are less likely to be willing to be engaged. So to close my presentation, just a little overview of what we mean by decentralizing through a blockchain. You have a blockchain that enables transparency and establishing trust because you cannot change the terms of the agreement. So when you govern a project, you need to trust the other parties. Blockchain enables that trust to be embedded into a permanent ledger that cannot be changed. And then you can use that mechanism for voting, like the cultural stake that I gave an example of, commons, like the art identification standard, production, like Zine. I gave you some links. Zine is a collective of artists who are working on publishing digital artworks on a regular basis through drops, and more. So cultural stake is actually an outcome of Nekaj, which is a decentralized lab in the art world, and currently an initiative across the world, which is called the Art World DAO, which is looking at 5 or 6 prototypes across the world. We have one in Hong Kong, in Johannesburg, Berlin, Athens, Minsk. And these various hubs are developing similar solutions, which will be either in the context of new economies or new communities. So this is closing my presentation, and we'll just move to the next final quote, which is by Franco Berardi, who tells that the field of the possible is only limited and not created by the power structures behind it. So in terms of agency, we should first look at ourselves and then look at how the technology can help us achieve our vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. I mean, for me, the most important word is fun.
Yes.
We all need to have fun. But anyway, I have a question. It's like we met several times in business environment, financial environment. And the key in art for a lot is trust. And what you create about with the IS standard, I suppose you do it for safety reasons and for trust, or not?
Right? But trust is important, and on the underlying questions in the art world, and from a commercial point of view, is the trust you can place on the agents or parties you are dealing with, the trust you can place on the object itself, and then the trust you can place on the financial transaction. And historically, the art market has been defined as a semi or unregulated market. Absolutely. So one of the benefits of AIS is precisely to address some issues around asymmetry of information in terms of lack of transparency in the market, but also fundamentally to embed new ways for a fairer economy. So in particular, protecting the rights of artists, enabling them to understand what's happening once the artwork has left an art studio, to be able to track the work and to be able to collect the rights that are associated, whether they're copyright, whether they are resale rights, and also the way the work is displayed and by whom it is owned. So there are many ways of introducing trust, but the first one is to trust the artist to understand and protect their legacy.
I understand, but I'm a collector. Like today, I was offered a Damien Hirst, and but like a lot of collectors, I need to care what I'm saying now. Is most of the collectors, they don't want that you can really see where everything is coming from.
Yes, that's very important, and actually, blockchain enables.
Don't want.
Blockchain enables what we call pseudo-anonymity. Yeah. So the transaction is registered somewhere. It's like a contract that will be with a notary. So you can have a notary will keep the information confidential. Blockchain enables that as well. And the information that will be publicly available can be very much segregated from what you want to be kept confidential. Mm-hmm. The point is that both levels, the open and the closed metadata that associate the transaction or define a transaction can be reached, but on a selective basis. So the trust is not compromised, the confidentiality is not compromised either. So the solution is facilitated by the technology.
Are you not afraid that the price will collapse because people with a lot of black money or money laundering, they see what's going on in the art world, no?
Well, there is always a black market, a gray market, and what I call a white market. So they will continue to flourish in their own right, but I think that the white market in a way will be much more readable for new collectors and safer for what we call high profile collectors who don't want to be tainted by any misbehaviors. So there will be place for everyone, and then you decide which playground you want to be involved with.
Okay. I will call you tomorrow to see if I need to buy the Damien Hirst.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, who is next? Hello?
I think you pick, Etienne.
Sorry?
I just picked somebody. I don't think Jim's on.
Oh.
No, I'm on. I'm just looking. I thought you had the list at the end. I'm
Well,
sorry.
but I
I'll
problems
look
with
it
my
up.
computer. I mean, things went complete. But I mean, I can introduce. Huh? Just tell me who I should introduce.
Take me a minute here
Will
to
we
get.
take Alan or Ferhat? Ferhat is on. Ferhat had problems today, or Alan? Who do you want? I see Alan is on.
Hello.
Hi, Alan. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. Do
Hi.
you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I will try to share my screen. So I don't know if you guys see it. Yeah. It's maybe not the most aesthetic way to share it, but this is the way I found for now. Do you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I start with this quote of Leonardo da Vinci to present myself. I'm a painter, and I have studied law and sociology of imaginary. And during 5 years, I collaborate with La Sorbonne University to understand what is the relationship with culture, art, and global imagination. So basically how we could mass manipulate people. Yeah, I know it's a big word. To create a new culture, and what is creating a new culture, what is the meaning of it. And so I read a lot of, as a painter, I read a lot of texts from the painters of history. And I realized that there's a common point between all those painters. It is every time there is a revolution in art, every time there is a new movement in art, it's because the painter have been back to nature and have a new look at it. So basically, a painter is there to use all the knowledge of his time and to look at nature again. And so Da Vinci is saying in this quote that we should give more value to nature itself than to the masters of history. So when we do art, we have to remember the master of history because they are collective knowledge, but we have to look at nature with contemporary eyes. So in 2014, I decided to dedicate me to forest art, and I start to announce this new art coming over. So I proposed forest art since that time. So I proposed it in Portugal, but I propose it also in Europe and in America for now. I'm in the bio-art network of Marianne Menezes. She's a bio-artist, and she invited me to Cultivamos Cultura, which is a residence in the south of Portugal, to develop this and to invite artists that have a forest practice to join. I realized I wasn't really good in creating communities, so now I'm more looking to artists that are doing that better than I do. But until now, I have focused on the question of what could be a forest art. So to see the forest as a work of art would be indeed a very deep solution to change our society. First, because it will change the anthropocentrism. And it's a huge revolution in terms of philosophy, because Aristotle is criticized in this point of view, because we are not looking at nature with a dominance of the man, but with a collaborator of the man. So basically, I try to see what forest art could be. So it could produce forest, of course, but forest soil, organic installations, stories, painting, photograph, like classic art, and performance. As performance, then the artist will become an ambassador of nature. And so I'm working with at the PhD level for this now, and I'm realizing that in Occidental society, we have the concept of the wild man. The wild man is a kind of indigenous of the time until the 15th century. And we have also the story of the woman, the intelligent woman of the wood, who was condemned by the Vatican over 800 years as a witch. So we have different indigenous character in our history. So yeah, so forest is art, is total art, as we understand. So we can see forest art in different areas. So there is like a very scientific aspect of it, because if you want to plant a forest or to identify a forest as a work of art, you need to work with biologists. I'm not a biologist, but I'm working with biologists who explain me soil, who explain me the ecosystem of a forest, to have this knowledge to use it for the artwork. It is also a cultural aesthetic field where with painting, poetry, images, stories, and it is also a magic and shamanic part where we can explore a deep connection with vegetal intelligence itself. So plant intelligence is a new discovery for Occidental science now with Stefano Mancuso, for instance, but it is a very old knowledge in indigenous history. So as an ambassador of nature, as a forest artist, as an artist, I try to imagine what will be a flag for the forest. So as I study law and history of law, I try to draw a flag that is representing vegetal intelligence. So the kingdom of plants will be the master of the soil, the master of the sky, and will be propaged the intelligence by chlorophyll. So I start to make this type of installation where you have a message for humanity, where the plant is talking directly to the human. And I also start to make some soil installation in the lab, in the gallery, who are representing the soil life around, because I refuse myself to put a plant in the gallery. I don't want to put life matter in gallery because plants don't like it. So I want to be in the side of the vegetal all the time. So if I have to visit a gallery, I will visit with the soil, because the soil can stay alive in a gallery. So this is at the SVA of New York, and it was really interesting because they put a perimeter around it to protect the space from the bacteria and from the insects I could have bring on by mistake. So it was really funny. I explore also to see what vegetal can make as sculpture. How can we make a live sculpture? So of course, conferences. And I start to go in the land art aspect, where to recreate installation of compost that actually help the restoration of the soil there. So for this, I work really with the scientific to understand how it works. But so it looks like a beautiful installation of branches and of leaves, but everything is really precise. The idea is to help the trees that are there to grow in summertime and to bring humidity and to bring them the mushrooms and the nutrients they need to prospect. So those are two abandoned lands where I'm reforesting first with the soil and trying for the cultural aspect to open the public eye that the soil can be a work of art in itself. So here you have a vision of the installation, and you can see the green spot there, who are little baby hawk, who because of this installation have been saved from the festival pedestrian to walk on. So this installation was made to seduce the pedestrian to not walk on the baby trees that you couldn't see normally. So after that, I reached to the main part of it, and I really, when I met Evgenia, I'm sorry if I said bad your name. I really recognize my practice in our project, because I don't call it a sanctuary, but I'm making a zone where I'm inviting owners who have land. So it can be collectors, but it can be normal owners, to buy for a symbolic price, but to buy for me an artwork which will be their forest. So basically, I'm helping the owner of land to protect their forest forever, or for the time the cultural law will be still on. So I also propose a technical solution for attracting rain. So with biologists, we are distributing to those owners some specific trees for them to be able to spread the wildlife in their land. And once I have planted this forest, like there in St. Louis, I'm making exhibitions in museums about those forests planted, to start to create a culture about it, to start to make those forests famous somehow. So this is, I call it memorials. So I have a series of flags, of objects that are memorials of this land art. And I go quickly because this is really where I wanted to go now to you, because I think it can be a solution for everybody in the world to protect their forest, which is the law art. This is why it's becoming a PhD now with La Sorbonne and with Porto University and with a gallery in New York that called the Grace Exhibition Space. So we are working on the contracts where people will sign a contract where they recognize, where we both recognize that their forest is now a work of art. Why that? Why? It's because there is no international treaty in the world that will protect the forest. It doesn't exist. Each time the states try to make an ecological treaty, it doesn't work. Trump is showing us he can destroy a sanctuary from 1,000 years in 2 seconds because it is not recognized as a cultural artifact of the national state. It is recognized only as ecological artifact. And the state of America is not bounding by an international treaty to oblige it to protect those sanctuaries. So the solution I'm proposing to Eternal Forest, or to any people who wants to protect the forest as a work of art, is to recognize this forest as a work of art contractually. Of course, making exhibition, making poetry, making a cultural around it will be useful. But if you sign a contract, then it will be recognized as a work of art, and it will depend on the Convention of Bern. There is in law what they call it the hierarchy of norm. So you have different kind of source for law. And international treaty as constitution as always superior. I will tell you the story. Maybe I don't have time for this one. So maybe I pass it on. So for instance, this is a biologist I'm working with, is now trying to use human rights to save Amazonia. It's not working. So even if we explain to United Nations that killing Amazonia will kill human rights and it's a human disaster, it doesn't work. What will work, and it is the case, what will work is to consider that as a work of art. And this is UNESCO maybe would like to try that. So this is you have to check up the Convention de Berne of 1886 that have been signed by 175 states. So the strategy here is not to use the environmental laws, but is to use the art laws. This Convention of Berne, whose have been modified in the 50s, in the 70s, in the 90s, but not on this essence, it was just extended to the new form of art we could meet, is a convention that protects every work of art from destruction. It is called the moral right. So basically, if you buy a vase from the Ming period in China, and if you are in California, you cannot destroy the vase. If you buy a Picasso, you cannot destroy the Picasso, otherwise the family or the state of Spain or France will prosecute you. So if you destroy the vase from the Ming period, you will have China who will prosecute you, even if you own the vase. So it could be the same for a forest. If you own a forest and then suddenly it is officially recognized as a work of art, nobody can destroy it. And when you sell your land, the new owner has to respect it as a work of art itself. Like if you buy a castle from the 15th century. If you buy a castle from the 15th century, you cannot destroy it, even if you have the full right of property on it. This exception of the Convention de Berne is the one against capitalism, and it's the ones against the right of property. It is redefining the right of property, and it is giving an alienation to it. We can use that power as artists to save nature and to consider nature as culture and as work of art. Tomorrow, if you want to protect some bees, rare bees, why don't you make an action to declare those bees as your work of art and making museum exhibition, etc. And then suddenly those bees will be protected by a better law. I know it's a bit theoretical for now, but I'm about to sign the first contract this summer. And La Sorbonne want to be involved in it because they have so many lawyers there to help me. But it's questioning the power as an artist we have, and then the responsibility we have with it. We don't have economical power. I'm very poor. I'm going to lose my apartment in September because of the crisis. I mean, but I have this power. I'm in exhibiting museum. I'm doing a PhD in a different institution. I'm visible. So I have this power. And so I'm the only power I have, I'm going to use it. There are examples in history where people have created forest as work of art. And you have this famous project from Agnes Dennis. She already did one in Finland. Of course, because it was done in the 90s, today we will see a forest not as a monoculture. As Evgenia said, there is a very huge difference between monoculture and forest. This artist is maybe from another time and didn't have all the information we have today, but nevertheless, it opened the path to see the forest as work of art. So to finish, I will just say that I'm trying to experiment vegetal intelligence itself by doing shamanism ritual and drawings. So this is a drawing that is made under the direction of a plant. So the plant is telling me to draw that, and it's creating my soul and my cells by drawing it. There is a research at Oxford University with a biologist who studies this phenomenon where shamanic plants can help you to see your inner body. So it's not only a joke. I can show you, if you want to take a screen capture of this, of references about science, about the intelligence of the plants. So you have Francis Allais, you have the Italian Stefano Mancuso. You also have information there about the low arts, how the history of art, the relationship between art and law have been emerged. I can send you the PhD project if you want. If you ask me to, I can send you the historical background of law art. It starts with Karl Magnus, and it starts with a war with the church. So it's really interesting. Art and law have been always related. I'm not inventing something. I'm very opportunist with everything you see. So you could also have a very great book if you want to know about the wild man, but it's in French, unfortunately, L'homme sauvage dans les lettres et les arts. So thank you. I think I did my time. May the forest be with you all, and yeah, I wish you the best.
Thank you, Alan. A question, can we have a copy of your presentation?
Yes, sure.
I have some suggestion or question. I have 4 French astronauts, artist astronauts, and they were contacted by NASA and by ESA. And are you interested in this type of thinking or co-thinking with them? Because they're always trying to find philosophers to think in a constructive, disruptive way. So
yeah, I'm really looking for, now I'm realizing this possibility of low art. I'm really, even if I really love the forest and I want to continue my practice with compost and with land art, and I think I will as a personal practice, but I really think this low art thing can help to create a new economy, a new society. And I'm looking forward to meet artists in other fields, or to maybe they can apply this concept and this historical reflection to their work. I think it can be very useful.
Okay, I will introduce you. But you know, ESA decided to build a temple on the moon, printed in 3D, in which they bring the ideas of the world we live in now. So can fit.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Do you think I can? Do you want me to share the slide in the? No.
No, you can post it on Ubiquity, on Ubiverse. Okay. You can do that, and you can send to me.
Okay, it's perfect.
Any questions?
Yes. Hello, Etienne. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
No, rather than a question, I would like to make a small contribution to a fantastic, wonderful explanation by Alan. So I like your work so much, really. I'm also very interested in not art, the forest as art, but also art outside. So my upcoming presentation will be more or less be about it. Just I would like to say that when you describe forest as art, you highlighted the very important fact, because when you look at art history, for instance, and nature and the land outside itself, it's an endless book, not only for artists, but for all people. We can learn so many things from, and endlessly. Consider Paul Cézanne's serial painting called Mountain Saint-Mictoire. Because when Cézanne continually, sporadically observed the structure of Saint-Mictoire mountain, and he wrote down in his diaries, said that I'm learning the structures of painting, how to combine shapes rationally, or the essence of composition. All is embedded in the mountain, because what I see in the mountain is to observe rectangulars, triangles, and circles, and shapes and cubes. So over time, his paintings evolved perhaps into a pre-cubic movement, and inherited from Cézanne's thoughts, ideas. Picasso made other contributions to contemporary art, saying that what I see in the future, in the nature. Sorry, he said that instead of observing nature, I look at deeply at Cézanne's painting, because that is the source where I can learn what the nature is from. So in that sense, actually, nature outside is the essence of composition and painting, or artistic principles, visual, of all sorts of visual principles. So I would like to emphasize, with the small contribution to your talk. I like that.
Yeah.
Ferhat, I need to introduce you.
You can look at Jean-Jacques Rousseau also. It's a French philosopher.
Yeah.
And he said that we love nature because we have seen a painting of nature before.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, hello to the audience. I need to introduce Ferhat. He is from Turkey. He is a visual artist and is an academic. He is Professor Doctor at Dutch University. You know the country from Erdogan. And he will talk about the recurrence of solidarity and art of participation, because they go there under huge pressure. And he will also explain about how the local biennales can help the local people to understand art and to see the possibilities of solidarity and togetherness in very periphery of Turkey. So they are under huge pressure, and we will help Turkey to create a better world. Ferhat, it's all yours.
Thank you, Etienne. Sorry, I was both fortunate and unfortunate because of power cuts suddenly just prior to our talk. And unfortunately, the builders, their workers started digging the floor to replace the cable. So I fear so much not to attend, to miss this panel discussion. Even a little bit late, I was able to catch you all. So it was out of my control, unfortunately. So I would like to repeat my thanks, Jim Garrison and Etienne Verbist, for the valuable invitation. And for me, it's a great honor to be part of this exciting panel series. I have been following up more or less all the panels when I have time over the past 1 month up to now, at least in the last session, sometimes in the first section, sometimes the second round, question and answers and discussions. That was really so exciting to realize that we all seem to have agreed on the necessity or importance of cooperation, solidarity, and togetherness. So from the positive perspective, I would like to emphasize that the COVID-19 confinement became an opportunity for me to consider or reconsider or reinvestigate some of my work I realized almost more than a decade ago. So I started tracking back to negotiate which matters I was engaged in and what might have driven me to produce them, because in terms of the content, they are very much related with our main topics. So humanitarianism and the urgency of cooperation and solidarity. Because we are now losing our greeting rituals during or since pandemic, which is based on physical touch, physical distancing, such as embracing, shaking hands, kissing, hugging, cuddling, and touching in particular. Unlike its fatal danger, touching had an healing impact and consoling power on our bodies. When creating this work that I will share in a couple of minutes, might I have feared or foreseen that someday in the future, physical contact will be lost? Probably this kind of anxiety must have stimulated me to focus on the themes. And over time, I have become more engaged in interrogating art as social responsibility, participatory practice, cooperation, and collective action. So I would like to start with some visual samples with PowerPoint, share screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Is it okay?
No, no, don't see it.
Sorry. What should I do? Screen share. Yeah. I click.
Yep, it's okay. No. Yep.
Is it okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So as you described, recurrence of solidarity and art of participation to remembers past and now, sampled from my individual experience. With this statement, so as to clarify what are the conceptual framework. So as to clarify for the audiences, participants. So I put aside all the explanations about the photograph. Over time, for so many years, I have been observing the geographical change in the city where I was born in Ankara and grew up and spent most of my life until I moved to 2010 to Istanbul. Embrace this photograph regarding the issues I mentioned, the physical distancing. In the meantime, I would prefer to call physical distancing instead of social distancing, because social distancing, I think, sounded rather misperception for me, because we can still socialize by preserving our physical distancing. So in terms of I prefer to call it physical distancing. So this photo implies a universal reality, humankind demeanor. It's the mise-en-scène realized persistently inside a construction area. There's a conspicuous connection between the figures who embrace each other and the anatomy of the space that surround them. So they are all whispering to each other's ear. We embrace each other in a construction area because peace is also under construction. But now, across the world, not only peace, but also touching is under construction. I asked myself, would it be possible still to convince people to come together to embrace each other in our current time during pandemic? No, I don't think so. So it implies, in that sense, the uncertainty of future, as well as our desire or need to physical closeness, we all will be longing for. It's the drawing I created in 2012, but not much else to say about this. It signifies everything. You know, kissing with face mask on, which is mandatory across the world now, but also I replaced on the head of the woman the angel of death, a wolf on the main figure, to create something surreal, something abstract. This is from an archival footage I found in the library. Shows the area where I was born, Ankara in 1970s. So having moved from Turkish countryside to Ankara, many residents or migrants or immigrants, let's say, built their homes on the outskirts of the city. This is from the same district, maybe down below these hills. This is the same district in 2002. A collaborative action, or a together, based on togetherness. This photo performance I realized in 2002. So after I moved to another district, which is 15 miles away from this street, and after a couple of years, I wanted to visit the district, the street I was born. And on a Sunday morning, I invited all the residents to pose for a group photo outside their homes. I knocked each of their doors to invite them outside to share a unique moment that they will never experience again in the future, and photographed them both from the entrance and the exit of the same street. So the neighbors stared grimly at the camera, sort of mocked by life, as they were well aware that the district will be demolished and gentrified soon. When I went there, maybe two years ago, there was nothing left from this street. And I could not believe that. So I skipped several slides. This is I couldn't believe, could this street be the same street I was born and I used to stroll around and playing when I was little? So I couldn't believe the impact of urbanization and gentrification or modernization in Ankara is the negative and adverse impact I was more interested in to document. So this gives another archival data from 2003. The urbanization, modernization still continuing. And another photo I took in 2002 from the same area. So I created a photograph called Pieta 2006. It similarly portrays the same matter. You know, the Pieta is the name given to the sculpture of Virgin Mary holding dead Jesus in her arms, and we see a mother and son who in Altındağ, the look of which has changed completely, to sit among the demolished squatter remnants with new face of the city. The mother, my elder sister performed this photo, performed her for this photo. And the son, he was an unemployed family living in this quarters. It's perhaps this photo is a lamentation dedicated to the city, not only to Ankara, but the lamentation to all cities which expanded by immigration as of 1960s up to now. Another sample could be realized in collaboration with the merchants who are working in Istanbul textile and trade centers. That was the commission I realized for the 10th Istanbul Biennial 2010. So we prepared all together in collaboration with the workers or the shop owners, a newspaper, a puzzle newspaper, as well as a puzzle board replaced outside within the same shopping center. So it's prepared by gathering Istanbul Textile Center resident suggestion. Therefore, it allows subjective flow of information among these individuals. So by placing the board in a public place, so passers-by will encounter the crossword board, enter the game, and contact the work so that the interactivity of the project will increase. So each merchant I met was asked 3 questions, as well as alongside with their answers, and I mixed them up within the same puzzle paper and delivered all the paper between them through this paper. So each of them was able to learn more about the others' individual private matters and problems. So it functioned like a mediator at the puzzle board. So also some samples from the newspapers, 1 page of it replaced within the center. So passers-by could join and solve the crossword puzzles. If I have got 2 or 3 couple of minutes, I would like to share this short video clip, because when I think about this, when I think of this sort of performance, so this performance reminded me of a new forms of participation created, perhaps forcibly or improvised within the neighbors. So it signifies the importance of neighborhood that we all have to preserve, forever. So I'd like to open a video link. YouTube, I think, sorry. It's just the samples. Small samples. So, sorry. So in conclusion, I would like to summarize up after all these samples and experience. I see the collaboration as a new art form, because we are still bound by many uncertainties. Yet for visual artists, I strongly believe that keeping our commitments with all our collaborators, neighbors, our public, as well as our colleagues and participants is vital. Taking care of each other is important, particularly because this care is now fundamental, not only for our individual well-being, but that of all people at risk throughout the world who are facing the gross inequality of exposure, diagnosis, and recovery from dire straits of the present. We are aware that these transformations will be a collective effort that will require everyone to push in many different directions at the same time. So our motto we have to embrace could be this: no one lets go of anyone else. Thank you very much. Maybe I can, Etienne, for the second round, give similar samples by other artists from regional biennial, as you said, in your introduction speech.
Thank you, Ferhat. I mean, I've been looking to your pictures, and it's like I feel like being in a war zone. No, it gives me that impression, and I like the Curator a lot. And then I know Turkey very well. I know Istanbul. I know things changing. It's frightening. And I was wondering how, because during COVID-19, are there other platforms or initiatives in Turkey for more solidarity, and what have been done so far, and how was the process?
That's a great question. Thank you very much. Yes, as you described so well, and even sometimes when I went to not in Ankara, to come to the main point of your question, but not for Ankara, but across Turkey, wherever you go, the gentrification, the impact of gentrification, modernization, it looks like a war area remnant. It's not modernization; it's just destruction by not preserving nothing, valuable historic also. No cultural heritage, just because of skyscrapers and huge buildings. That's just to build huge building. No one cares about our national heritage also. So if we put this aside, still so many good things is happening actually with response to your question. There was COVID-19, and there are still, many others are being added, but there are several outstanding organizations or establishment initiated by either institutions, official institutions, or artist groups, or artists working independently. So the first sample comes to my mind, there could be Saha Foundation. The Saha Foundation is a foundation initiated by entrepreneurs and philanthropists and the businessmen who devoted themselves to support contemporary art from Turkey. So during lockdown, COVID-19 pandemic, they announced a call for proposal to support artists or groups, projects, exhibitions that were interrupted by the lockdown, by pandemic, or a new proposal addressing issues that have arisen, post-pandemic problems, or people, initiatives who are seeking for extra money for their unrealized or incomplete or half-complete project. I think they will grant up to a certain amount of money, at least 15 selected projects, which is really a significant contribution, in these hard times for all the artists. Others could be almost in Turkish that I can translate into English, a shoulder, which signifies the necessity of walking hand in hand. So it implies stand shoulder to shoulder. So there is another one, Artist Association, and another one supported by foreign institutions as well, Daire, which means circle, a residence program. So all are based on strengthening the network between artist groups, not only for local artists, but also for international network, to support or to encourage people to support or invest on art, or bridging between those who would like to, who are eager to support art or who want to be supported. So they work so well, as a solution maker in that sense. I think it functioned rather positively in that sense. There are numerous samples I can give in terms of the collaboration and solidarity at the moment. Thank you.
Last question for Turkey, because I go to every possible big biennale which I can go to, and they're all off now. Well, Venice is off, and Basel is off. But I remember of some local biennales. Are they still going on, or how does this help to the
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah, I hope next time when you have time, we can visit together 3 outstanding biennials alongside Istanbul Biennial. I'm sure that you visited Istanbul Biennial several times. So some regional biennials, we can call it, regional biennials in terms of creating a new platform for not only for local artists, but also to bring artists from Istanbul as well as foreign artists from abroad, from various countries, to bring them together in a specific region to enliven the local atmosphere with cultures and art. So one of them is Mardin Biennale that I was one of the initiators together with my friends, and I was part of the curatorial team in 2009. That's still going on. The 4th edition, I was engaged in. The 5th edition at the moment has been postponed to the next year, as many other biennials. Another one is Dardanel Biennial, which I call in Turkish in Çanakkale Biennial in the Black Sea region. And the last one, the 3rd biennial, they are more or less, more than 5 years preparing at least the 4th edition or 5th edition. They're rather matured now, created by rather experienced group, international and the creators from and the foreign creators and Turkish creators. All work collaboratively. Dardanel Biennial in the neighboring city to Çanakkale, it's a Sinop. Another one, Sinop Biennial, sorry, neighboring city to Çanakkale, Dardanel. Several examples when I have time, or when you have time, by other artists who work collaboratively. They created so fascinating works in this. So we have extra 3 more biennials aside Istanbul Biennial, regional biennials.
Thank you. I mean, Ferhat, this is in fact the best introduction you can give to our next speaker is Epi Ludvic, because you said one of your titles was "Collaboration is a New Art Form."
Yeah.
Now, collaboration and crowdsourcing, it's the same. It's the same. And Epi is Epi Ludvic Nekaj is from Singapore. He is an entrepreneur, is founder of the Bold Awards and Crowdsourcing Week. And he's going to talk to us about collective art and the collective outlook and everything which is created on a very short notice. I know Epi is about 4 or 5 years, and I went to about 15, 20 of the conferences worldwide, and I see things changing at such a speed. And Epi, who is there, he can give you a nice explanation how art and crowdsourcing can fit to create a better world. Thank you, Fred. Hi, Epi.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Etienne, for inviting me. This is really exciting. It's full disclosure. I'm not an artist and entrepreneur, but I do have some background as an artist. I was a cellist back in my teens. I used to play classical music for 7 years. The long story short, I had to take my journey to go to the United States and move there and support my mother. So we're living in very interesting times, and I really appreciate all of you for really bringing a great aspects in terms of the nature and the forest and what Evgenia has shared with, and the Alan and Farouk with your ways of the taking away that the physical context of what we're used to live with. And we need to really pay attention to things that are moving so fast, and not being able to take a step back and understand why these things are happening. Etienne, thanks for this invitation, and thanks, Jim, for having me. This is my second session I'm doing with the Humanity Rising for these 40 days. I'm really enjoying it, and congratulations, Jim, to you for pulling this thing together. I know how what it takes to make things happen. Etienne, I really appreciate for your perseverance of pushing me towards the direction of going back and paying attention more to the art, which I am starting to realize that it is a very, very important part of our life. And I have put some things together that I thought would be great for us to just understand how art and crowdsourcing meet together and what can be done to make the world a better place. Since for Etienne, you've been a big promoter of this theme of the art can change the world. So let's change the world together. So I'm going to share the screen that I just put a few slides for you, and just let me know when you see my desktop, so that way I can start.
Okay. You see it, yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just 1 second. Okay, great. So art influences society by changing opinions. In this sense, is communication to an object or abstract. This allows us to people like us to come from different cultures and at different times to communicate with each other via images and sounds and stories. What if is this stories, sounds and images are coming from all of us? What would that collective art look like? This presentation, what I want to bring it forward and understand what are the models that we're looking at in terms of the how crowdsourcing is bringing us forward with these elements of arts, and how this space is changing and what this means as far as the new art economy and how art and the new art for the humanity rising. I just want to first pay my tributes to our good friend whom we lost early this year in April. Her name is Naziha Matsui, an artist and architect of One Heart, One Tree project. She spoke at our conference in Brussels. Etienne, you were the one who invited her and speak at our conference, and her work is about is an art that gives the opportunity to plant a tree of light in 3D and the most famous monuments. In this case, the first one was done at the Eiffel Tower, and for every tree that is virtually planted through this application, a real tree was planted in the global reforestation programs. So it's really she is just amazing person, and the world has lost this soul. And I, as Alan said in this presentation earlier, may the force be with you, Naziha. A little bit of background about my journey with Crowdsourcing Week and what we've been doing in the past and how this is in relation to what I'm here today is that I've been doing this Crowdsourcing Week for the past 7 years. Although there was a very tough journey in terms of bringing these conversations all over the world. I'm from New York, and I decided to bring this first to Asia in Singapore. And the reason was because Asia was this untapped geography. There was no conversation crowdsourcing, so that was my decision that I made. So each year what we do with Crowdsourcing Week, we create themes, and this year's theme is about the Crowd 2.0 and how crowdsourcing is enabling and humanizing AIs and machine learning. Every year these themes change based on the current environment, but this theme is so timely given the fact that the environment that we're living right now and what we're experiencing at the moment. With bolder words, it's a program that we launched with in a very unique innovation campus outside of Venice, Italy. It's called H-Farm, which stands for Human Farm. And the idea of the Bold Awards is to bring people together from all over the world and bring their projects based on the categories from the different types of backgrounds. And those categories are primarily tech-driven, but they're also socially driven as well. So we're really proud that we've done twice. We've done it. This is our third edition. For any information, you can go and check out on our site on boldawards.com. The background of the crowdsourcing, a lot of times, what happens is there is always a misconcept of crowdsourcing. And so about 6 years ago, we decided that it's time to visualize this part. And this is where the arts come in. It's because when we are conveying message through the visual aspect, we're able to really win hearts and express ourselves in a better way. So we thought this type of diagram will be helpful for a lot of people to understand the space of a crowdsourcing and where it is. But you can probably relate to some of these companies that you can see here. You can relate where some of these companies are fitting in these particular segments. The background really starts about in 2007, 2009, where this worst economic recession happened back in 2007 to 2009. This was the first wave or the first shock that we've seen in this space, and this was the birth, pretty much, or the first generation of crowdsourced solutions. So people had to find ways to find alternative ways to do things, and so you had the birth of all these type of platforms. And I'm not talking about this time around what's about to happen, because this time around is just the magnitude, the scale that we're talking about. This economic recession is nothing compared to what it was before. But I strongly believe that even that it looks so terrible and so hard to believe that we're in this environment, I strongly believe that we have a huge opportunity to sensitize everyone through crowdsourcing to build a much bigger and much more powerful platforms that is not primarily owned by a handful of stakeholders, but it owned by us. So the power of us is what really matters, and what I've been taking this and evangelizing and all over the world for the past 7 years. So a lot of times, like, I ask myself the questions like, why am I doing this thing? Why is it so hard? And the answer is that, it is the why that I'm behind this. And the why is that I want to bring this closer to the people and to the institutions and to the organizations and the private sector, so we can bring people closer, and we can innovate together. So just like Ferhat said about the collaboration is a new art form, I say in a business world that collaboration is the future of business, period. So I want you to pay a close attention to this slide, because from a business perspective, I always understand that the markets always have a short memory. And so I like to remind everyone that, in the agricultural revolution, or the agricultural age, the knowledge that was there was doubling collectively. It took a lot longer. It took around a good 400 years. And fast forward, if you look at in the industrial age, where we in the early 1900s, we kind of shrank that to like 50 years, that collective knowledge that was doubling. And a fast forward, if you look at where the star is in 2017, literally just a little bit over a year, we're talking about this doubling of the knowledge, of the collective knowledge. And now that we have entered this information age, we're talking about the knowledge being doubled every 12 hours. God knows where this is going, where it's going to lead us, given the fact that we are now on the exponential growth and it's unstoppable. So it is very, very important to understand that we are in the information age, and during this information age, we are seeing the fights and the battles, and we're seeing the all kinds of things that's happening. But out of all these kind of things that is happening, which are a lot of these are negative, I strongly believe that the humans will come together once and for all and bring peace and joy and love to one another. With this, I'd like to just go over and give you like a bit of a picture of what I picked up from Etienne over the years as we've been traveling in many places around the world together with Etienne, with Crowdsourcing Week, and done amazing things in Europe. Crowdsourcing as an crowdsourced art versus the traditional art. And a crowdsourcing art is about inclusiveness. It's about access. Crowdsourcing is creating something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And so understanding that it's all about us and it's not about me is where crowdsourcing art is and where it's going. Now, collectively, this is something that art has the power to wake people up. And I believe that with a collective consciousness coming together to wake people up with the installation and the compositions and all different type of objects that we can inspire people to come and bring an amazing experience is something what really matters. We are now entering on an age when we will hold the power of life in our hands to be used properly and dominated by the power of love, period. What we must have is the chain reaction of the human spirit. Art can help us see this vision because art has, again, the power to wake people up. This type of collaboration with photographers and artists was to create a series of images that captures the shared humanity. If you look at this particular slide here in Kickstarter, it's exactly what happened 3 years ago, where people coming together, over 20,000 people coming together, raising over $1 million to really bring a statement in terms of capturing this humanity, this hope that is in our diverse America. There's a lot of forms in terms of the crowdsourced models. I like to bring some of them we had experience in the past, and those things that I remember the most, and some new things that I have come across. This is a great example of one of them. That is, it's called a museum. Is democratizing art. Is a virtual museum that pretty much has an exhibition over 80,000 paintings and illustrations of drawings and by 8,000 artists of the past and nearly 2,000 participants, contemporary artists from over 100 countries. It's also a great platform for a knowledge hub where you can go and learn about the art pieces there. Beside you having a hands-on in terms of being able to purchase the prints of these, some of the prints of these arts as well. Now, what's really interesting to understand, these platforms, they are connecting and they're sensitizing people to be part of this bigger picture. If you look at, for example, a Kickstarter, which is one of those reward-driven crowdfunding platforms, you could see clearly that they've been able to bring tens of thousands of the art projects alive with over $1 billion in funding, all coming from people like me and you by giving out and paying just a little of this of funds and not going out there and trying to break the bank in order to see a very great project alive. So the interesting things about this thing is that I wrote an article about 5 years ago, and this article was about a Chinese contemporary artist. All things are possible if you hustle with him, with the crowd, like a artist like IYY. He is a prominent Chinese contemporary artist and political activist, has done anything possible to compete his work of art in Australia. This was about 5 years ago, as I mentioned. After a Danish toy company, Lego, refused to sell him a bulk order for his masterpiece. So his masterpiece was pretty much like a bulk of the Lego toys. And basically Lego said no. And the reason, it was just straightforward. It was IYY's content comes with a political agenda. And of course, as we all know, Lego in China, China is the biggest market, one of the biggest market for Lego. And of course, here we have this conflict. And I think when we look deeper here, art allows us to express our inner creatives and thoughts. And while Lego, a spokesperson, said that they respected any individual's rights to free creative expressions, in this case, Guardian wrote that obviously there's an exception to the rule in this case, where pretty much what they're saying that art shouldn't be censored, should be influenced by centralized organizations, no government, because we nullify the basic right of every human. And I think what we're experiencing right now, we're experiencing that level of censorship that we have never seen before, and art is one of those vehicles that can really break the chain of this censorship that is happening. So we have a great opportunity in front of us to break this chain and to make sure that we are really living in a society that is primarily respects the basic human right, the number one basic human right, and the freedom to express ourselves. This is the number one thing that we need to really make sure that we are addressing today, because we are in this exponential growth when I show you that slide. And that exponential growth, you have knowledge being doubled in such a fast pace that if we do not pay attention to this very important things, we're going to lose our battle. And obviously, the Lego, of course, has crowdsourcing platforms that pretty much enables everybody to be a toy designer. And for all of you out there, artists, if you have not come across it, just go and check out the Lego ideas. You may get inspired by it and create something interesting with the Lego. But the opportunity we're talking about here is massive. And one great example that I thought would be, which is also a recent example, is with one of the prestigious architecture firm, Carlo Ratti Associates. They unveiled this world's first crowdsourced graffiti. And Carlo Ratti has unveiled this world's first graffiti with the designed by thousands of people. They came together and painted by a swarm of drones in the city of Torino. And so this is a remarkable thinking about like how we can really use technologies and how we can really bring this together with the people to express ourselves in these kind of cities environments. So this is an opportunity that we can start to think and how we can really bring all these pieces together to make that impact and to make that statement and to inspire people in order to act on what's the right thing to do. Now, I wanted also to bring you some of the platforms that are also moving in direction in terms of making art more accessible and more transparent. In this case, you have a platform like, I always have a hard time to pronounce this name, but Magnin, and basically this platform is, what they do is they trade in a tokenized fine art in this platform. And it's the first kind of like a blockchain-based platform that allows anyone to buy, sell, and trade part of ownership in these massive pieces, and then have it, exchange liquid on the exchanges out there. So primarily focused on democratizing access to the fine art investment. Another very interesting platform, which they were part of our Bold Awards, our first edition. It's feral horses. So how does it work in a nutshell? The artworks ownership is fractionalized into shares. Basically, new artwork campaigns go live every month and within their project's page. If this artwork is not fully funded by the end of the campaign, all the co-owners are fully refunded. And if it's successfully, your rewards are sent out to you. The certificates are also of ownership are issued to you, and all the co-owners become the legal owners of the artwork. So we're starting to see some really interesting models in the art space where the tech is involved. And I think this type of innovation, it enabled us to really think deeper in terms of like what else we can do in order to win the battle and to bring this joy of love that is being expressed by the art. Another great example is the Masterworks. They primarily, what they do, they purchase only paintings by top performing artists using a database of more than 1 million auction records that they have selected artists and that meet their investment objectives, similar to pretty much like companies with different artists have different appreciation and risk profiles. And after that's done, basically paintings are being displayed in their gallery. So gallery is like membership only until they are sold to a private collector. So it's kind of like in a very business sense, a return of investment type of environment if you're looking for having hold. One of their biggest challenge, I asked one of the founders, the biggest challenge is having access to those art pieces for them. So that was an interesting thing to understand, and looking at the art as a way that the stored asset. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think we need to wrap up.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Epi. Thank you all. I took some words from Alan and from Ferhat, and everybody was speaking. But words what struck me were like joy of love, fun, solidarity, collaboration, nature, community, empowered by people. And that's what it's all about. We have to collaborate and we have to do things together to create a better world. Thank you, speakers. Hi, Jim.
Thank you, Etienne and Epi and Ferhat and Alan. It's been a super panel. Evgenia, you've been magnificent with your forest art, and Ferhat, the art coming out of nature and all the way through to what Alan shared and then Epi shared. You know, it's hard to take in that knowledge doubles every 12 hours. We just take a moment to take in what Epi said. That knowledge doubling every 12 hours. And the power of art in this process could not be more important. So I want to thank the panel. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time. And tomorrow we'll be meeting again at 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European time. And we'll be exploring with Jude Currivan, who's like Epi has appeared before, who's a brilliant futurist and cosmologist. She's going to be bringing together a panel on how science can participate in envisioning a new world. So that's tomorrow with Jude Currivan and another very distinguished panel. This has been a tour de force, Etienne. I've learned so much about contemporary art through this presentation today, and Etienne will be convening a second panel in August with more artists that he's bringing together and convening. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.